Back in 1984, authorities in Iran began to realize they had a problem. Women and girls were being strangled and dumped, sometimes with their children, in places where they were discovered mostly by gendarmes and police officers. They wouldn't know it then, but the problem actually began in 1981 when a woman reported her 36-year-old daughter, Akhtar, and her two grandchildren, Mohammed and Farhanaz, missing. Police would find the mother later and then the children some distance away. The case went unsolved for 3 years. During the summer of 1984, four bodies would be discovered in the desert area on the outskirts of Tehran, buried in shallow graves. Some with a white rope still around their necks, some with fragments of white rope embedded into the strangulation marks on her neck. All of the other bodies would be found in similar condition, though most were left in the open rather than in a shallow grave. Authorities would appoint the first Iranian special homicide investigator in their history at this point. His sole job would be to find the killer. After those first two discoveries, at least 17 more were found, killed in the same way. Police were at a loss as to who the killer could be until the sister of the last woman discovered told police that she saw her sister followed by a man who drove a green Chevrolet Vantar. The man told her that he was her driver and showed her an ID card. She described the driver to police and was able to give part of the license plate. She said that he had an Azeri accent, dark skin, and was lanky. The homicide investigator worked with traffic police to identify all the green Vantars that could be suspect, because they had at least part of that plate. And there were 100 registered in different Iranian cities. Police were in the process of tracking down each of those vehicles and checking on the driver when the good news was shared that a man named Majid in a green Vantar was stopped near the Baharestan square by police officers. Now, he spoke with an Azeri accent and he had dark skin. He had tried to grab another woman, but her brother intervened and tried to help her escape. As Majid drove away, the brother found a stick and smashed out the back window of the little green car with that stick. The smashed window is what first drew the attention of patrol officers. Patrol officers kept him waiting, asking for documents for the vehicle and asking about the smashed window while they waited for word from their central office about whether the driver should be arrested. They asked to check the trunk, and in the trunk they find pieces of white rope, some quilts and mats, picnic, and some women's clothes. And he's arrested. The lead investigator is called to return to the office late that evening, and Majid Salek Mahmoudi, driver, serial killer, confesses openly to 40 murders. After the confession, the investigator escorted him to his jail cell personally. He had promised to be sure that the killer could not commit suicide. Jailers were told not to give him spoons, forks, or even sheets, but jailers gave him a blanket anyway. Majid tore the blanket into strips, created a rope for himself, and then hung himself in the cell. In ultra-conservative papers, reporting would say that he only killed unchaste women and that he killed only after discovering that his wife had an affair with a relative of his. This was not true. He chose any woman, traveling with her children or not. There was no evidence at all that the women were or were not chaste. This is untrue, according to the lead investigator. There is also no credible evidence that the women were raped. These allegations are reported in a number of blogs and other creator content. These same reports would include the misogyny you would expect they're only women. Well, that's not true either, for he killed at least 2 male children. Some also blamed Hezbollah for the murders, and this as well proved untrue. It would take the work and patience of a dedicated investigator to get to the truth. Many use the killings to make political statements of their own, to terrify women from leaving their houses, or to make unfounded allegations against women. You have to read, particularly the news reports and commentary from the time, in the context of Iranian society and what it was experiencing at that time, which was a time that was only shortly after the Ayatollah came to power. Women were losing the freedoms they previously enjoyed in Iran, which settled through areas outside Tehran first and Tehran last, as urban Iranians adjusted to a very different reality than the one they previously had. Women were targeted by all manner of propaganda, particularly regarding their chastity and loyalty. And there is literally an entire report out there on the internet from Iran that details the names and sins of the 24 unchaste women victims and implies that they deserve what happened to them because of those sins. Well, that report, which I will not link to, as official looking as it seems at first glance, gets so many of the dates wrong. The order is wrong, the locations are wrong, most of the names are wrong, which tells me, without looking too much deeper, that it's simply a propaganda piece. Be careful what you believe, folks, especially if what you are reading seems to have a strong bias or political bend. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and you want to see more, please click the subscribe button and hit those notifications so that you don't miss any uploads. We appreciate you. Thanks.